In the top stories, travel advisory extended for travelers from Brazil, the UK, South Africa and India. Men charged for sex crimes against children in Jamaica, and pledges to boost COVID vaccine manufacturing in G7 meeting. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday newscast. Today is Wednesday. Today is the 6th of May 2021. I'm Jason Davis. Nationally, the government has announced that the travel advisory originally issued on February 7 and which has been extended twice so far has been further extended for another 30 days. In a press release issued on Wednesday, the task force stated that this advisory is intended for travelers from Brazil, the United Kingdom and South Africa and is now expanded to include India. The advisory became effective on Tuesday, May 4. The release continued by stating that this new travel advisory comes as a result of the government's interest in continuing to protect our borders and the health and wellness of our citizens and residents in response to the 3 new variants of the COVID-19 virus that have originated in Brazil, South Africa and the UK. The inclusion of India in the travel advisory comes in light of the widespread rates of COVID-19 in that Asian country, particularly as a result of the double mutants of the virus, which are responsible for average daily infections exceeding 380,000. India has already confirmed 20.7 million cases of COVID-19 and some 226,000 deaths. The travel advisories for the UK, Brazil, South Africa, and India remain in effect for at least 30 days. Dr. Cuthbert Sebastian Jr., emergency room physician at the Joseph N. France General Hospital, says vaccines are safe and important and are used to build the natural immunity of a person's body against disease infection. Dr. Sebastian was at the time discussing the COVID-19 pandemic and the importance of vaccination during the May 5 edition of Working for You.
A method that we use to boost our natural defenses against a specific disease. So what they do is they take either a virus or a bacteria or a pathogen and take either a part of it or the whole thing and they administer it into the body so your body sees it and then it can build up a natural defense against it. But what they do is they weaken it or kill it, or it's a harmless part of it where it doesn't cause an infection. So that's what a vaccine does. So it's seen as a preventative measure to get the actual disease.
Dr. Sebastian addressed the issue of catching a disease even after being vaccinated. He noted that vaccines can help reduce the severity of a disease, which means that even if a vaccinated person catches an infectious illness, he or she is less likely to suffer serious complications.
Is proven to be 100% effective. None in existence, not these COVID-19 vaccines, not the ones that we've seen throughout the past. But using some examples from the past, we no longer have to deal with polio anymore, where that used to be rampaging through the world, where we had hospitals dedicated just for this disease at one point in time.
Dr. Sebastian repeated that vaccines are indeed important and safe, adding that they work with the immune system to prepare one's body to fight any virus once exposed. Incidences of fires reported in St. Kitts and Nevis are on the decrease. That is according to Garfield Hodge, Acting Chief Fire Officer of the St. Kitts and Nevis Fire and Rescue Services. In an address on Tuesday to mark International Firefighters Day, Acting Officer Hodge said that 695 fires were recorded in 2019 compared to 643 fires in 2020. He attributed the reduction to the work of the fire services.
Reduction can be attributed to the effective management and operation of my department's fire prevention unit. I wish to commend my hard-working, committed and dedicated officers for their commitment to the cause of service relative to fire prevention and fire extinguishment.
The Fire Prevention Unit, which is headed by Fire Substation Officer Timothy Martin, is responsible for public education initiatives on fire safety and prevention. Activities include public service announcements, practical demonstrations on how to use a fire extinguisher, and interactive and informative sessions. Mr. Hodge also cautioned businesses and residents to have fire extinguishers on hand. He said children are also taught methods of fire prevention and extinguishing, as studies suggest that they are more inclined to start fires.
Institutions and residential homes to invest in the procurement of a fire extinguisher or extinguishers, because this seemingly simple device can save lives, limbs, properties, and economies. Another fire prevention component is our annual summer safety program, which targets and equips children at the elementary school level with fire prevention and life-saving skills, thus reducing fires, particularly house fires. Studies have shown that 70% of residential fires are started by children of this age range. Locally, statistics have indicated that there has been a significant reduction in this respect since the inception of this program nigh 20 years ago.
Mr. Hodge pledged that the men and women under his command will continue to live up to their motto, which is to protect and safeguard the life and property of citizens and residents by preventing or reducing the dangers and effects of fires and explosions. We now move to news on the regional scene. In Jamaica, the men who allegedly abducted and buggered a 13-year-old girl and a man who buggered a 5-year-old boy have been charged, but the call has increased for greater penalties for those who commit crimes against children. More in this CVM News report.
Were implicated in 2 separate incidents of buggery against 2 minors in St. Anne recently. The incidents, which have triggered tremendous public outrage, have been condemned by several children's agencies. Deputy Superintendent of Police Linton Bailey is in charge of crime in St. Anne.
The first incident, 5 persons have been charged for abduction, buggery, and grievous sexual assault. They are for court on Friday. The one person has been charged is a 20 years old male. He has been charged with buggery and grievous sexual assault.
The 13-year-old girl was abducted by 5 men on her way from a shop in her community. She was taken to a house where she was sexually assaulted by the group of men. Days later, the police received reports that a 5-year-old boy from another community was buggered by a 20-year-old man. Meanwhile, a St. Anne councillor, Ian Bell, has condemned the acts against the minors, describing the incidents as very unfortunate.
We need to take some drastic actions against perpetrators, against persons when we find them guilty of these type of serious offenses against persons. And I think that the law needs to tighten its teeth.
Earlier this week, the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, CPFSA, said it will be investigating both incidents. The police have been urging parents and guardians to exercise greater vigilance over their children and take every effort to protect them from sexual predators. Christine Forbes for CVM Live.
The Antigua and Barbuda Health Ministry has partnered with Epicurean Fine Foods to launch the One World Protected promotion. The promotion seeks to offer food vouchers to those who receive their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Here's more from ABS's Shanakisha Francis.
Against COVID-19 by offering a generous incentive to individuals who take the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine.
COVID is here. Let us do something that will give back to our community, and in addition to promoting the vaccine. So this is how we got started. We said, what are the ways, rather than giving financially just to the initiative of maybe purchasing more vaccine or anything, we said, why not give back to the people themselves?
She explains how people would be able to receive their $50 food voucher.
Starting May 1st, which was last week as we know, Once you get your first dose of vaccine, upon exiting the building, you will be given a $50 voucher that you can use at any of the Epicurean stores. Not only Epicurean Drive or Jolly Harbor, but we also incorporated Price Chopper, which is our store there at Wood Center. We also incorporated Perry Bay Supermarket.
The food vouchers are not redeemable in cash and should be used in one single transaction. There is no expiry date on the vouchers, so shoppers are free to use them whenever they please. Those who have already taken the vaccine are not eligible to benefit from the voucher system. Clark states the promotion will continue until most of the nation is vaccinated against the virus. These $50 food vouchers will be given to individuals who have received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine and will be available at any one of the vaccination centers. Shanikisha Francis reporting for ABS News.
Internationally, foreign ministers from the world's wealthiest industrialized countries have pledged to boost the manufacturing of COVID-19 vaccines. Al Jazeera's Niv Barker reports from London.
Diplomacy after a long hiatus, albeit behind masks, handshakes swapped for elbow bumps. The family photo requiring the widest of wide lenses. But despite tight protocols for all attendees, including daily COVID tests for delegates, the Indian team confirmed 2 of its diplomats had tested positive, forcing the entire mission, including the country's Foreign Minister Subramanian Jaishankar, seen here with the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Monday, into self-isolation. Speaking in Northern England before arriving at the G7 in person later in the day, the British Prime Minister insisted the show must go on.
I think it's very important to try to continue as much business as you can as a government. We have a very important relationship with India, with our G7 partners. As I understand it, what's happened is that the individuals concerned are all isolating.
India isn't a G7 member, but it is increasingly a pivotal ally of the group as a trade partner for the United Kingdom, especially post-Brexit. And secondly, as a regional security ally in the face of an increasingly aggressive China. India, meanwhile, has been looking for greater international support in tackling the crisis engulfing the country, with the promise of oxygen concentrators and ventilators from Germany, the UK and others. The virus has been on a long list of topics covered during the summit, with the G7 promising to boost support for the UN's COVAX scheme, aimed at getting vaccines to some of the world's poorest countries. Of the 1 billion doses delivered worldwide, only 1% has so far gone to low-income countries. In a final communiqué, ministers also pledged to support peace efforts in Syria to the Sahel, Ethiopia to Eastern Europe, and to restore a rules-based international system in the aftermath of the Trump administration and Russia and China's more aggressive foreign policies.
We stood up for open trade. We've agreed a series of concrete, tangible mechanisms to promote human rights and democracy around the world. And we broaden, if you like, the scope of the normal G7.
But the in-person absence of India from the summit will inevitably force host, the UK, to rethink COVID protocols ahead of the G7 Leaders Summit in June. A reminder that while many rich Western democracies are beginning to emerge from the pandemic, others remain in the midst of a deepening crisis. Niv Barker, Al Jazeera, London.
And now for the weather. Current conditions are fair skies with a moderate breeze of 15 miles per hour from an easterly direction. The temperature is 29 degrees Celsius or 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Seas are moderate with waves not exceeding 5 feet. The weather forecast in St. Kitts and Nevis for today says to expect partly cloudy skies with a 50% or moderate chance of brief passing showers. And for tonight, fair to partly cloudy skies with a 40% or moderate chance of brief passing showers. Sunset today will be at 6:33 p.m., sunrise tomorrow at 5:42 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jason Davis.